What's up, everyone? May the 4th be with you. My name is Andy Coronado, and tonight, joining my three amigos crew, I got Elias Gregoriades and Hadi Rafael. How are we doing tonight, gentlemen?
We're fine.
Exhausted.
Okay, great. That was fantastic energy, just what I needed. Thank you so much. We're fine.
No, we're fine. We're fine, man. Everything's fine. We just hoped for a bit more than just one win out of the three games, but yeah, you can't win them all.
Wishful thinking. That's what we
This is why
call
I
it.
tell you guys that men's soccer is stupid and you should only follow women's soccer.
I
Hey, well
agree.
said.
I
Well
agree.
said. Well said. Well said.
I
Well,
say it
look,
every
we
week.
got today is welcome to episode 261 of the Ball is Round. We got a pack one for you tonight. Ball is Rounders. Not quite the perfect Montreal soccer weekend, as Heidi mentioned, but as they say, this is where the fun begins across the city. The Force. Uh, the force was, let's say, a little unbalanced. Rose FC came in like the rebellion at full strength. Guys, I really tried in this. Dominant, fearless, and walking away with a massive statement with win FC Supra to Quebec, caught in a match full of controversy. Feels like they got a bit lost in the Galactic Senate treatment against Cavalry FC. What am I even saying right now? And
You're
CF
making no
Montreal's
sense.
momentum. Well, it hit a disturbance in the force, stopped by just cold by Atlanta United. Was it a trap? Maybe. But one thing's for sure, there's plenty to break down from a weekend that had a little bit of everything. Stay with us. You're not going to want to miss this. Guys, let's get right into the action. First off, we'll start with the win. What do you guys say? Let's go ahead and talk about a
Yeah,
little
let's
Rose
go.
Yeah,
FC.
Yeah, for sure.
great way to
So
tell everybody it's only downhill from here.
yeah, exactly. We start high and then we're just gonna go lower.
Yeah.
So, Rose FC hosted their first home match at Stade Boreal, taking on reigning NSL champions Vancouver Rise, who were notably without Latifa Abdou. Elias, you and I were there, and before the game, we noticed she wasn't on the game sheets, not even on the bench, and everybody was looking at each other. Right? We were saying, "Where is
She's
Latifa?" We
gonna
hadn't
get
heard.
traded to Ottawa.
Right then and there, she got traded. But we were wondering, right, what happened,
Yeah.
what was the deal. So but later on in the post game press conference, the head coach of Vancouver said that she had picked up an injury in the week before. Injury. And
Yep.
so what would
Don't
you think,
think it's
Elias? First of all,
something.
because it was our first time being at Stade Boreal this year, second year for the Roses. What did you think? Because they did announce renovations, and we actually saw it full. There was the new screen, right? At one end, now they had the big screen at one end, and then they also had they changed all the lodges. They changed it to another end. They used to be on the other side. What did you think? What was your experience like, Eliza, being at the
My,
stadium for
my
second
my
year?
analysis will be in two parts because I had a two-part weekend and
And you're frozen.
my camera's frozen again, but you guys
Here
can see
we
me,
go.
and my voice is all that matters. Um, but so I'll talk a bit about roses and I'll talk a bit about Supra because my experience in what really was twofold. So first off, they compared to what the press box was last year, it is an improvement. I think Andy and I were in agreement on that. The problem now is the lines of sight, at least from where the conventional press box is not good. Uh, Everyone in the press box that was not sitting in the first row and could tilt their head around the visual obstructions was spent the rest of the game on their feet, kind of bobbing and weaving around
Oh yeah,
to follow the
it
game.
was a dance. It was a
Uh,
dance.
it pretty much. So it was almost like those cartoons where everyone sticks their head out the side of the door and everyone's like head is on top of each other. That's what happens when the ball's played down the right side, because you couldn't really see anything else. So I hope that they kind of work on the sight lines because if it's like that for a whole season, it's going to be a little bit more complicated. But there was an improvement for the Super game. And I'll save that for the Super game when we talk
Yeah.
about that. So I'll say for the Roses game, the press box in of itself was a bit of a letdown. But I do like the renovations they've made. It looks much better and it looks much more professional.
Well, yeah, and I agree with Elias. I mean, being in the press box, the view was complicated, as it was really really. difficult to see the game. We kind of had to weave around. I stood all the way at one end of the press box just to get a full view of the field, but it's again, from my understanding, this is just temporary. They've said that since the beginning, and I think what I've been hearing is that it's a 3-year lease. This would be a year two, so they're trying to do their best with what they have, but this is not a permanent home. So while they're doing something temporary, they're asking everyone, including the fans and the media, to kind of adjust. But I will say, as you said, Elias, it is an improvement because last year, one of the things that I actually shared with one of the guys at the press from RDS, um, was that we had trouble actually whenever there was a goal or something exciting happening, the fans would stand up from their seat and they would actually cover the media. So we weren't able to see it anymore. But now they actually managed to make it high so that even if the fans are standing, we can still watch the game. Tiny detail, but there was improvement to it. And in my opinion, the Roses FC, the way it was organized, everything where we went for the post-game press conference, where we went from the beginning, all the staff were so well coordinated and organized to kind of cater to the media, right, to anybody visiting. So I think it was a much better. We'll talk about FC Super in a bit, but that was our experience at Stade Boreal. Hopefully things I don't know if they can do anything about the view at this point. It's very temporary if you want. But we're gonna go ahead and talk about the game. So Elias, can you just pull up that Roses FC lineup? And so at goalie we had Anna Karpenko, and then we had Seto. We had the back three: Seto, Lucy Capadonna, Stephanie Hill, Cherim as a right middle, Chloe Minas, Charlotte Bilbao as the middle, and Megan Sauvé as the left middle. And then we had Lisa Petersky and Tanya Boychuk as the 10, even though they were kind of playing striker, and Elise Bennett as the 9. All right, so when you look at that lineup, Patty, I'll start with you. What do you see in that lineup? Was there anything that excited you, or you would have wished you would have seen something different from that? What were your thoughts?
No, I think it was a good lineup. I was happy for Elias because Charim was playing. I know he loves her very much, so that was nice. No, it was for me nothing really stood out from this starting 11. I was very happy to be able to see them play their first home game against Vancouver and see how they're gonna react to that added pressure, because as you said, they're still the champions, so it's tough to play against them.
Absolutely, and I agree with you. What some of the things that surprised me about that lineup was who was benched, because we saw Noémie Paquin is coming back from injury, but I would have expected her to start. Laurie Thibault started last week. She was on
But
the
for
bench.
who? For who? If you put Noémie Paquin, who do you bench?
Well, exactly. So with the formation, you start. There's no way you bench Lisa Petersky. There is not
exactly.
a chance
You
can
can't bench her. You can't bench Bennett, and you can't bench
Jadim Kang.
Boychuk.
Exactly. Boychuk,
Jadim Kang. None of those forwards you can. But that show, and that's something we spoke about during the game, right? Is that the depth that the Roses FC have and their bench is impressive until the end of the game when some injuries started happening, which we'll get right to it. Elias, what did you think of that lineup when you saw it?
I was very interested to see, the real only change in the lineup was Chirim Kang at wingback instead of Haley Whitaker. Haley Whitaker has been one of the mainstays in this roster since Roses was created. So her losing out her starting spot against the defending champions is a very interesting development. I mean, Chirim Kang played wingback briefly during the preseason because, again, she was off on international duty on 2 occasions, so she didn't really have as much time with the team as others did. But again, Chirim Kang's quality is undeniable, and technically on the ball, she is, if not the best, she's in the top 3. Just in terms of pure quality. So I think having her on the field is innately just a good thing. And if Robert Rosatoyu is throwing caution to the wind and just saying we are going to outscore you, and that's how we're going to win games, then Chirim Kang has to be involved. And again, she was decisive in a number of moments. And again, her creativity led to the 3rd goal. So it was a good move, and I understood the move. But it's going to be very interesting
Yeah.
to see now that there's some more competition and some more depth, because the wingback position was one of our biggest points of concerns depth wise, because Jody Smith and Lara Shank were not technically replaced.
Yeah. Now, like she played Sharon Kang. She did play like a hybrid wing back. She didn't really play on the wing. She came to the middle most of the time. So she wasn't a proper right wing back, which I think helped a lot because she's
Mhm.
more as a midfielder, and we saw it during the game. And I think it's very intelligent because that made um, balance the team a bit more. Of course, with the Megan Sauvé playing a bit deeper than she
Mhm.
used to. She wasn't playing up on the field, so you had that sort of balance with Sauvé playing deeper and Shireen playing more in the midfield. It seemed like when in possession like a three back, but when not in possession like a four back, and it was I really liked it. Very interesting from Rosie Tillian.
Yeah, and we'll just
I
keep on
think
that.
honestly what it did was, it more than balance the Roses, it
Yeah,
unbalanced Vancouver.
of course. Yeah,
Because
100%.
now what Robert Rosatoyu is doing is he's taking the two best technical players on the team, and Lisa Petruski and Chirim Kang. He's putting them on the same side, and he's basically telling them in possession the roles are interchangeable.
Yeah,
Because at some point we saw Lisa Petruski playing as a quote unquote wingback, and Chirim was playing right behind Bennett,
yeah.
and then they would switch back. And so again, it's extremely difficult to plan for that. And I don't think any team in the league has the defensive numbers and quality to just stack that right side. Because again, when you do that, you're giving at least Bennett a one-on-one, which means you're going to die, or you're giving Tanya Boychuk free space to run into, which means you're going to die. So that's the thing, right? Right now, until teams kind of plan for this and understand in more in depth how the Roses play, Robert Rosatoyu has all these defenses in sort of a catch-22, because where are you going to commit your numbers? So now it's not the case of getting into a shootout. Now it's just about holding on for dear life, not being too exposed, and then trying to hit back on the counter against these Roses. And even then, if you can survive, are you in any shape to counter?
And that's the thing, like, because I actually want to talk. I know we're talking about the lineup, but I do want to talk overall about the game. And before we get into Rose's FC game, I actually want to talk about Vancouver, because I felt that we just mentioned that at the top that Vancouver won. The Vancouver Rise lost a few players, but they won last year's championship, and they were a very good team to watch play. But against Montreal, I felt like they maybe weren't the best team. They really didn't play well. They seemed a little bit surprised by, as Elias mentioned, how their defenders were constantly being pressed by Montreal's attack, and didn't really have an answer. And the coach really never, Vancouver's coach never really adapted to what Robert Rossitoyu planned for them. What were your thoughts of the game overall? I know how you kind of started on it already. Can you maybe just give us your thoughts overall of the game?
Oh, it was like he completely outmatched Rositoyo outmatched his opponent. It's as simple as that. Tactically, the Rice coach didn't have any answer for him, and at the same time, what I really liked about him is that he didn't only he didn't only choose the good tactic, but he also chose the right players. We talked about Whitaker not being here. We talked about Pacan not being, but it was exactly what the doctor ordered. This is exactly what we wanted on the pitch. Now, at the same time, what I liked, don't forget about the opposition. You're talking about, them winning the league, but if you look at them individually, you have a lot of Canadian national team players there. You don't have nobodies against you. You have Quinn, you have De Filippo that's been called quite a few times. You have Shirayeka, you have some good players on the other side. And honestly, it felt like the Roses were playing against a lower division team. And it's as simple as that. Great job by the coaching staff. Very good team, I think. And also, of course, they got a bit of luck also. Don't forget, like the two goals of Tanya Boychuk were a bit lucky because they weren't like created by her. A lucky bounce on the first one, one that came off the crossbar on the second one on a missed cross from Bennett, but overall, like Vancouver wasn't threatening at all during that game, and that's very encouraging for the Roses.
Elias, what were your overall thoughts of the game?
I mean, you also have to take into account the fact that, you look at that front four that won the title last year. You have Holly Ward, Latif Abdou, Jess DiFilippo, and Lisa Petrsky. Two are in. I mean, it's that one was left, right? One is playing NWSL, one is injured, one is playing for Roses, and that left Jess DiFilippo kind of by herself with a very new looking offense. So I'm not too surprised that they look a little bit out of sorts, but it doesn't excuse the fact that, nothing was working. And, both Quinn and the Vancouver Rise coach in the postgame presser were kind of at a loss for words. They didn't really understand. It really looked like they just didn't understand what had happened. And I don't think anyone in the press box either was understanding, because this is not the look of a team that's defending their title. They looked a little bit better against Toronto. But again, that was also individually created goals, right? Latif Abdou picks the ball up in midfield, runs in a straight line and scores. Cool. But
there wasn't anything, not even individual bursts. Nothing.
Exactly. So
they couldn't connect two passes.
They weren't combining. They were giving the ball up way too easily. They did. Capadonia, Hill, and Seto could have played striker, and there would have been no problems. In terms of troubling Anna Karpenko, and the gaps in behind the defense were abhorrent. So the Rise have a lot of work to do. I mean, they started off last season not that good either. They weren't in a playoff spot for a bit, and obviously the addition of Latif Abdou does send your team to another level for sure. But Latif Abdou is not going to score you 4 goals a game and win you games like this. So there's a massive. I'm very concerned for the Rise, but from the Roses' perspective, like Hadi said, Robert Rosatoyu completely outplayed.
Yeah,
both teams he's played against, both managers he's come up against so far, because frankly, it's all looked a little bit simple for the Roses in these first 2 games. Everything is in front of them. Everything is laid out. They haven't had to work too hard to get into the real positions they wanted. They're kind of giving the space in behind the fullbacks, especially on that right side. Both games now, all these goals are coming from the right side or balls in behind. And so, the Roses have kind of thrown the gauntlet down to the rest of the NSL, saying, adapt or die.
Yeah, exactly. And I like you said it, Elias. It looks like Robert Rosatoyu really, really prepared well for these next few games. At least we'll see how the next weeks go. But one of the more important things to me was that last year, when Roses FC were winning, we said that it seemed like the Roses FC players were just in better shape than their opponent. They seemed to be much more energized late in the game. They seemed ready to play the whole game. They seemed at another level. This time, I'm not going to say that the physicality was better for Rose FC. I'm going to say that tactically, they figured out what works best for them. Robert Rosatoyu really figured out what his players are about, because, Hadi, Elias, you guys know this. Last year, Rose FC were in a new league, new team, just like every other team. And Robert Rosatoyu, when I asked him, what is it that you feel is the difference between last year and this year's offseason? He's like, this year, I can only focus on soccer. I don't have to focus on, where we're training, what we're doing, except obviously when the thing went down because of the windstorm. But beyond that, all he had to do was focus on soccer. And that allowed him to probably, evaluate his players, evaluate his tactics, evaluate what works best. And you're seeing that work now. And the first 2, but it's just the first 2 games, right? So, guys, I'm going to ask you to give me, as I do every week, your top, maybe the one that wasn't so top, and the surprise performer. Can I start?
Yeah, for sure. Please.
I'll start with my top. I'll say Lisa Petrsky, because she was lethal on the right, unstoppable. And that's one of the things that Vancouver was not able to adapt. They were not able to figure out to go Marco Donadel, man. Like man to like just block her 2 or 3 people because she was running loose on the right side, and she just completely destroyed the Vancouver on the right side and really created a lot of opportunities. Honestly, I feel like they could have been up 6-7-0 because she was doing so well with the space in front of her. The one who didn't quite meet the expectations to me, I was maybe expecting more from Charlotte Bibo. And I say that almost every game
Ooh.
because she's a veteran. I'm not saying she played bad, but I always expect a lot from her because like her experience and all that. I don't think she had a terrible game. I don't think anybody had a terrible game, but I do want to see her get more statistically involved with assists, with goals. If I'm not wrong, she had no assists on against Vancouver, right? But I know she took some shots on goal, and I saw her in practice. Also, during practice, they were doing drills where she would shoot from a distance, and she struggled. But you do want to see her improve on that. So, but again, I'm not saying anybody had a bad game. My surprise performer, which I shouldn't be surprised, was Chloe Minas. I thought she had a fantastic game up and down the field. Her set pieces, her crosses, fantastic. I think she's a player to watch this season. I think she can go to the next level and hopefully get that national call up as well. But yeah, that was my 3 players of this game. Hadi, you want to go next?
Yeah, I'll go next. I had the same top as you, but I'll change. I was really, really impressed by Stephanie Hill. Very, very, very impressed by her. She was great in her defensive coverage, but also she was very good. Going forward. Of course, her header always a good thing. Very easy for her. Unfortunately, she went out injured. Hopefully, it's nothing very too serious. But I really liked her game. I think that she was with Capadona, but she was very interesting also going forward, which is not something that you expect out of set pieces. And I like that from her. For the flop, I'm going to be killed by Elias, but for me, it's Shayrim.
I agree.
It's very hard to give a flop when you win 4-0, right? Everybody played very well. But the problem with Shayrim is that when you're playing that hybrid role as midfielder, right wing back, she doesn't have the physicality to play as a wing back. And whenever you need that speed with the ball to be able to overlap or do anything, she doesn't have that. And sometimes it was a bit difficult for her playing that hybrid role. At the same time, when she's in midfield, as Elias said, she's very good. But that second part of the game for me was a bit lacking. As a surprise, and I'm going to be very, against you, it seems, Andy, it's Charlotte Bilbao. And for me, Bilbao, I really liked her game because she is a defensive player. She's not a player that's going to go up front and try to score goals. But you know what? She attempted shots on goal. And for me, that's something that she's trying to add a bit more to her game. And you know what? That surprised me because for me, Charlotte Bilbao is like the equivalent of Samuel Piet, right? In CF Montréal. She's supposed to be that defensive player that's going to play in front of the defense and just help the defense as much as she can right now in her advanced age. But no, I was very surprised. I think she did very well. She added something. She added a few layers to her game. Of course, again, as you said, that Andy, she needs, of course, to get better. That's for sure. But she surprised me with that, with those moves.
But why? I mean, why do you want her to add that to her game? If you want to bring in the example Samuel Piet, do we really want a Sam Piet adding an attacking phase to his game, or do you want, Charlotte Bibo just to do what she does really well and do it well and just kind of stay there?
Oh no, I prefer that she stays in her role personally. For me, you have enough offensive players to come and score goals and to create. You need that defensive safety out there. Now, if she's able, while keeping the structure in place, if she's able to bring that to the team, why not? But make sure that your priority is to be in front of the defense and solidify the structure like Samuel Piet does, right? So this is for me. It was a surprise because she had the opportunity, of course, against, let's say it, a very weak team. Unfortunately, she had the opportunity. Yeah, they were very, very weak. I'm sorry. Like, the Rise was very weak. Like, Quinn was the only one that was really, uh, you know, standing out. The only one, and even then, they weren't very, very good. They tried as much as they can, but yeah, no. Bilbao had the chance because the team was weak.
Yeah. Elias, you heard it, huh? Hattie has said Vancouver was a lower league team and they were very weak. I want to
In
hear
this
your
game,
take.
in this game, yeah, in this
They
game.
100% were. They were not at the
Thank
level
you.
required, at the level expected of. Forget the defending champions, just a competitive NSL team, 100%. Of course, when they get maybe past their injury crisis, they'll be more competitive for sure.
For
But
sure.
definitely super upsetting and kind of revealing to maybe a horrible lack of depth that this team has. I'm furious with Hattie because he stole my top. Stephanie Hill was fantastic. I was talking with Karim Medzi from the On S'en Foot podcast about how she
Shout out.
probably
Very
could
nice,
be the
very nice
most.
podcast, by the way, guys. If you want
She
to listen
probably
to,
could be the best defender in the NSL.
yeah,
And it looks like this year she's gained a lot of confidence. She's gained a lot of uh, that kind of assertiveness to impose herself. That first goal only happened because she had a perfect crossfield ball with her weak foot, by the way. So her fitting into that left center back role is fantastic. I'm gonna pick someone else. I'm gonna pick Elise Bennett because we didn't really talk about her in the first game because it was too obvious that she was fantastic. So I'm gonna talk about her today. She is
Another level. She's
a
another level.
grown ass adult amongst
Yeah.
children.
She's
Um,
another level.
yeah, she is an NWSL striker playing in the NSL, and I know that the NSL has ambitions of reaching that level. They're not quite there yet. They're taking good steps, but at least Bennett is a cut above. That being said, if the NSL wants to get to the next level, at least Bennett cannot be a one-time thing, an anomaly. She has to be a common occurrence across all the teams in the league, right? So I'm really happy with what Elise Bennett has done so far. Not just her putting the ball in the back of the net, which was the biggest issue last season. This level of not just being clinical, but cold-blooded in front of goal, but the fact that she's making so much space for everybody else. She's occupying not just physical space up top, but so much mental space in the defenders' analysis of what's happening that people are just free all the time. Even when she drops into the midfield, or maybe not midfield, but even she drops a little bit out of that 9 position to combine with Minas and Bilbao, people are following her. She's creating space in behind, and once people like Boychuk and Petruski and Paquin, real speedsters, can abuse that, it's going to get even better. This is game 2, right? A lot of these girls still are not super comfortable. Right? Tanya Boychuk has played like a grand total of like 150 minutes, including preseason, with Elise Bennett at the same time. So they're still relatively unfamiliar with each other, and they're already operating at a pretty high level. And Boychuk's second goal only happened because Elise Bennett almost scored her worldie and hit the crossbar, and it was a free tap in. So Elise Bennett has came in with a lot of expectations, a lot of demands of her game, and she's fulfilled every single one so far. So now it's just about staying hungry and continuously improving, because there's
she does
some
have
chemistry
a
things.
few things to improve. Yeah,
There's some chemistry things that can improve. I think that sometimes she gets a little bit of tunnel vision, especially when she's maybe a bit on her own, when she could delay. She's strong enough to hold the ball up and then kind of wait for support. But again, when a striker's confident, wants to take people on and wants to do something, I'm okay with it. As long as it doesn't happen every single time. There's just a couple moments where she could have had a bit more restraint and combined. But again, when you have 3 goals and an assist in your first 2 games, generally, I'm not going to start complaining. My flop, I don't really have a flop. I was disappointed in the left side of the attack.
Mm.
I think that Tanya Boychuk scored a brace, and obviously it's very hard to complain when you score a brace. But I feel like just the left side, her and Megan Sauvé together didn't create
Weird.
as much as we saw on the right side. Again, that's also because the right side was so
They didn't
just
need it.
obviously free every single time that Montreal had the ball, that they almost didn't even think to look left as much, which I kind of understand. But that just means that when you do have the ball on the left side, you have to make your opportunities count even more. And they didn't really. So again, like, when you're playing a game, especially a game that you're controlling from start to finish, you have to almost like make the case as to why your side, or your partnership deserves to get the ball. And every single time Pechersky and Chirim got the ball, and people were making runs in behind, and even Krui Minas was getting involved, it would only enable everyone else to give the ball in the same spot again and again and again. And whenever Sauvé and Boychuk on that side got the ball, they didn't do anything wrong, but you have to be a well balanced side. So I'm flop is not the right word. By
Not as
comparison,
good.
right? By comparison, when the right side has been so overwhelmingly dominant, the left side is doesn't shine as much. I don't have a big surprise. Everyone is operating exactly as expected. Honestly, my surprise was Nuit Paquin pulling trigger from like 45 yards out and scoring. That was my big surprise of the game.
Wait, Elias,
But
could we say that our big surprise was Robert Rusatoyu?
no,
I
because
was gonna say he was our top. He was our top.
that's more appropriate than maybe a surprise, because again, everything that we've seen from Robert Rosatoyu this preseason pointed towards a team that's playing like this. I'm surprised more in how the other teams have started off so slow
So
compared to the
Vancouver was
Roses.
the surprise.
No, the surprise was nobody, because everyone played as expected, and we don't talk
Okay,
about
great,
Vancouver here.
fantastic. Next topic. All right, all right. Well, look, we mentioned it a little bit. There were injuries at the end, right, which is concerning, because a lot, guys, when we were watching the game, we noticed that some of the defenders were going down. I think it was Stephanie Hills, you mentioned, that went down.
Yeah.
She got subbed out,
She
and
had
then
cramps though. It's not. She was just
yeah,
cramping. It's fine.
hopefully we'll learn this week. I'll be at practice tomorrow, so we'll see if she's there. And then did Lucy Capadon also leave? I don't remember if she
Nope.
got subbed out, but
And Valerie Sato came out, but that
No.
was a planned substitution.
but it wasn't
Yeah.
an injury.
No,
Okay,
That was
Capadona
planned. That was just
stayed, but
bad timing.
yeah,
there was a clash
She
between
got a ball in the face.
Capadona and
No, she
Yeah.
bumped
No,
heads
no.
with Di Filippo.
Yeah, exactly, a clash.
But she was fine. She finished the game.
okay. There were. I mean, look, the Stephanie Hill. We'll see how it goes. But next up, we have a trip to face AFC Toronto, which, if you guys remember, 2025 is kind of traumatizing because they played so terribly at the end of the year last year to get eliminated from the playoffs, and as in the two legs, and also just terrible 3 games. And Robert Rusatoya has been open about it, right? He said, yeah, it was terrible playoffs against AFC Toronto. Do you guys think that this, I know it's early in the season, but do you think that this next matchup against AFC Toronto Roses might head into it looking into maybe like revenge, almost like revenge for what happened last year? Elias, how do you see it? How do you see this upcoming game?
I think they have to have a certain kind of chip on their shoulder for sure. You know, Toronto has also kind of hit the ground running. There is a kind of a concern because, if I'm not mistaken, Esther Okoronkwo left the game with an injury against Halifax. They drew last week. So that'll be a big talking point to see if she is fit for the game in Montreal. But no, not in Montreal, against Montreal rather. But again, this Montreal team cannot stop playing the way that they're playing. You have to kind of throw the gauntlet down at every team, especially early on in the season, to not just set the tone, but again, you're sending a message to the rest of the league that the Roses that you played against last year, the conservative and well constructed and albeit not too creative Roses, are no more. And this is a team now that's going to put 4 goals past you if you let them. So I'm very curious to see if they use that attitude, but I hope they do.
And Hadi, last year Roses FC, they started 2-0. I mean, we were talking about it on the pod. We were saying how exciting it is, their future. Like, it looks like they're playing a level above everybody. And this year they start again 2-0. But is it different this year? Do you think that they might be better than last year, um, or do you think that maybe Rose FC should, you know, play the next few games with a little bit of caution, with a little bit of maybe let's not get too excited right now? How do you think they're heading into this game?
It's very hard to judge the quality and the strength of a team just based on 2 games, right? It's too early to say yet. Usually we wait about a third of the season or a quarter of the season before we start judging the teams. But when you look at it, on paper, we do have a lot of depth, and that's something that we didn't have last year. There's depth everywhere, and that's what's really exciting. And I'm talking about with the tactics that Robert Toyo is using right now. There is depth everywhere, and that's what I want to see. Don't forget that we didn't see Badu yet play, and that, like, you do have also a few surprises that you haven't seen yet, right? So and Badu is supposed to be a very good player too. Maybe not. We're not sure if she's going to be a starter or not, but it's someone that's going to be in a rotation too. So you do have a lot of depths. And for me, this is something that's exciting, and that's a bit different from last year, because last year we said it, when Latifa Abdou went away, there was nobody to replace her, right? So right now, if we have an injury, wherever we have an injury, there is somebody that's going to be able and to play and going to be able to show their abilities, and that's what's really exciting.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a game that maybe it's my own feeling where I'm kind of seeing it as a revenge, because it was a very very terrible end of the season last year against AFC Toronto, and I think that Roses FC kind of need to get over that hump. I think Robert Russell needs to get over that hump and really, you know, I guess convince himself. I don't know how to say it, but in a sense that he can actually coach against Toronto and he can actually beat them tactically, as we mentioned, not just physically but tactically. And as you mentioned, to also try out some of the new weapons. Right? We have Marilou Harvey, also 16-year
Yeah,
old that I've asked Robert. I'm like, is she gonna play? Are you? But they're being very patient with her,
of course,
and she's
as they should.
I believe she's the second youngest player in the NSL right now. I think
Mhm.
the other players in Toronto, if I'm not wrong. But yeah, these are players that are, you see them in practice and you can see that they're learning every day and that they're developing quickly. So it's going to be very interesting. But let's go ahead and head into our next fun topic. But before we dive into our next topic, quick little message for y'all. If you like The Ball is Round, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. It really helps the show grow and keeps us bringing you more content every single week. And don't forget, drop your thoughts in the comments. We're here, we're interacting. What did you make of Rose's FC performance, FC Supra performance, CF Montreal performance? What needs to change? What stood out to you? We read the comments and we want to hear from you. Make sure you're also following us on all social media for daily updates, clip, and breaking takes covering anything Roses FC, FC Supra de Quebec, and CF Montreal. All right, we'll head into our next topic. Second topic of the day. This one is a little tough. I'm sorry, but I've been battling in my head all day about this one, because we're going to talk about FC Supra de Quebec. FC Supra took on Cavalry FC over the weekend in a match that ended in complete chaos. I'm telling you guys, Elias, you were in the press box as well. It was madness. It was madness, and there's plenty to talk about. But before we get into the fireworks on the pitch, there was a major moment off of it. FC Supra brought in a little extra buzz to Stade Boréal by welcoming Yaya Touré, the former Manchester City legend, as a special guest. Once again,
Barcelona legend.
once again, did you hear that? I didn't hear anything.
No, I didn't hear. I didn't hear.
I have the power to mute both of you. Keep talking like that.
Is there anybody? Okay, so once again, the ball is round. It was there for it all. What did you? Yeah, Elias, I'll ask you because you were there. What did you make of the experience? We have Mr. Felix Lajoie that asks us, "What's up with Yaya Toure?" I think that's the question we're all asking ourselves, right? Shout out Felix, thank you so much for joining us tonight. But what is up, Elias? What were your thoughts? First of all, when the announcement happens, right? I think it came on Wednesday. right? Wednesday that Yaya Toure is going to be in the game on Sunday. What was your initial reaction? And then tell
My
me, what was your after reaction?
why? I don't understand. Um, I still don't get it. It doesn't take away from how cool it was that you
To
have
shoot.
one of the greatest midfielders of a generation, at your home opener, at your stadium, first game at your stadium. But why? Pourquoi? Porque? Why? What are we doing? But even the whole ceremony at halftime, I was doing the halftime show with John Still on TSN 690. So I shout out John Still, by the way. I didn't have that much. I didn't see him up close. We saw him after the game, in the Supra's facility as he was leaving, but it was weird, man. He didn't even do the opening coin toss. It was the mayor of Laval, so I was like, why is he here? It was just some random thing at halftime, and then it was very much like an in and out. Boom, I'm there, I'm gone. I was never there. Okay, cool. So I guess it was a cute photo op. I don't know really what the players or the coach got out of it. Apparently, he met some of the players and some of and the coaches, but I I don't really have a take on it. It was more just like,
Have you
okay,
have you
okay, cool.
have you seen the meme of the guy? I think is a Simpsons character where he goes into a bar, takes off his hat,
Yep,
puts it
that's
there,
exactly what it was.
goes around, puts his hat back on, leaves.
Pretty much.
That's what it was. Hadi, I'll ask you see the text, you see the tweet, whatever it is. You learned that Yaya Toure is coming. What is your initial? What are your thoughts about it?
Honestly, I get excited. And I'm going to tell you why. Okay. I get excited because this club right now, the whole hype around the club, it's locals. It's players that have played in the past in Ligue 1 Quebec, that have faced those players that are a part of the FC Supra. All this is really cool, but it's not much. In order to build a team and build a dynasty and build something that's gonna last, you need more. You need more supporters. You need to bring more supporters to watch the show, to watch the game. And unfortunately, a lot of people right now, and especially youngsters, they like the names, they like the bling bling,
Yeah.
and he's part of the bling bling, right? Because he's been a great Manchester City player. Only no, I'm joking. Great Monaco player also. Yeah, a great Olympiacos player too.
Let's pull up his
Nah,
Wikipedia page and
that's too
show
far.
it.
That's too far. Nah. We don't
No,
talk
but,
about that club here.
Nobody really cares about that other club. Anyway, go on.
but yeah, no. But all I'm saying is, like, it's kind of normal to do that now. Yeah, I get it for people that are already sold on the product, like us three here. We don't need that, and we look at that as like. But at the same time, the club needs to attract people, and I think this is one of the ways. Now, if they do that every week or they do it three, 4 times, yeah, that would be a bit, stupid in my opinion. But just once, I kind of like it. I think it's a good thing. And right after you see the tweet of Yaya Toure saying, "Yeah, I was there with the small picture," and that brings a lot of visibility. And I have friends in France that sent me a message today saying, "Yeah, Toure was at FC Supra du Québec. What is FC Supra du Québec?" And I started explaining what is FC Supra du Québec. So I'm not saying that they're going to become fans, but at least you're going to have visibility on the team, and that's, I think, very important.
Can I ask you guys just one question? And I want a yes and no answer for this. Was
No.
it too soon? Was it
Oh,
too
no.
soon for the club to take advantage of this little trick in their pocket?
No, I don't think so. It was.
You think it was the right time? Because I don't
I
know.
don't think there's a time.
Exactly. I don't think it's like they had like a window or something to do it. I think they just kind of like planned it and it happened.
Exactly.
But like how you said, do one a year maybe. That'd be cool. But like, not one a month.
Didn't last minute like that feel rushed to you guys? Wouldn't you guys have wanted to maybe? Because
No.
the timing
Not
of
for
it
me
all with the
personally.
Habs game and everything, Like
Oh, I
it's
don't think that's. I mean, the next 5 games they have at home are on Habs games days. It's rough right now. The schedule
Yeah.
is very unfortunate for them, but I don't think it's gonna make
look
much of a difference.
about the Yaya Toure experience. Honestly, it went over my head. Like I saw the tweet and I was like, "That's amazing. That's great." I mean, I'm not a fan of Manchester City, nor am I a fan of Yaya Toure, but there's no takeaway from the fact that he's a legend. He is a great football player. He always was. So, but the thing is, like, when I got there, and Hadi, I'm not even lying to you. I go to the press box and I see that all the journalists on the field running, and I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
I guess I missed my window. Everywhere I see Elias there, I see all the people there, Sofian's all there, and I'm like, okay, I guess he's there because I had no idea. There was no indication, at least to me, that was clear as to what he was gonna do. What were the plans on what he was doing for the fans, what he was doing for the media, what he was doing for the. I had
He was
no
just
idea.
present. He was just present. He doesn't
Yeah,
need
and
to
that's
do much,
great.
right?
But
So,
to some extent, you want to give something to the fans.
but
In the
you
sense,
gave them his presence, right? So like there was a bit of a halftime show, as you said, but
what was the halftime show?
like a presentation, whatever it is,
It
you
was no
know.
presentation. It was him taking a picture, and I'm out.
Yeah, yeah, but they yelled, "It's yeah, Toure," and then they sang his song, and that's
I,
enough. You don't need
in any
more than
case,
that.
to me, I think and I'm not taking anything away from FC Super. I think this was an excellent get. I think that it could have been bigger. I think it was a little bit too soon to do it because, as you mentioned, I think you gotta maybe time it better. But again, maybe there was a conflict of schedule. I tweeted out based on what I heard. He wasn't the easiest person to work with either. So I mean, they tried to demand a lot, him to do a few things, and he just wasn't okay with it. And that's okay. That's not. I don't need to delve deeper into that. But it was. I think that FC Supra, if this is what they can do, they kind of. Do you guys think they kind of set a standard for the next like seasons or maybe games as to like who could FC Supra possibly bring up next to their stadium? Or do you guys think fans are going to be like, okay, we got it, we're good?
I mean, I have no. I guess, but like honestly, unless it's like an actual thing and like a partnership, I have no opinion on this.
Yeah, same. At the end of the day, man, like you say, it's not the right timing. What's the next step? There isn't any step. There isn't any timing. It's just an opportunity. He came and he's gone, and that's it. There's nothing more than that, right? Like, it's like when you're at a Lakers game or whatever, and you have like an actor that's there that's very well known, and they put a picture of him, and everybody claps, and then it's gone. That like it's just one of those moments. It's like saying that come watch FC Supra. It's like most celebrities come watch and FC Supra. It's
Look,
kind of this
I get it.
advertisement, not
All
more
I'm
than
saying
that.
is they set the standard. I want Scarlett Johansson at the next FC Super Team at Quebec. Felix Lajoie tells us, how about Corentin Tolisso? Why not?
Yeah.
Bayern Munich,
Okay, that's
baby. Let's go.
that's not
Yeah.
a okay. That was just misreporting from a journalist.
Yeah.
That happens, and we move on. That's that
Yeah,
was an oopsie.
yeah, it was an oopsie. It was an oopsie because he played with Lyon right after and he scored a great
Yeah.
Yeah,
goal.
Hey, it happens, man. It happens.
biggest game of the year is the next day.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is what it is. All right, so we talked about the outside of the game. I think that was interesting. Elias, did you want to talk a little bit about your experience? We can talk about it, you and I, because we were at the stadium. Did you want to talk a little bit more about your experience of how it was at Stade Boreal, the FC
yeah,
Super's first
so
game?
honestly, the complaints that I had with the Roses press box were kind of null and void because a bunch of journalists just said, "Screw it, let's go sit in the middle," and so we did.
Yeah, the lodge.
I hope that Stade Boreal in general kind of takes that to heart and moves the press box a bit more centrally because I I can't see anything on the left. I'm sorry. It was it was very annoying. But once we were in the middle, magically, oh my god, you see everything. So put two and two together and let the people covering your team see the game.
Yeah, I mean, and look, it's hard to see, but at the end of the day, I think it's both. It's not an FC Super thing. I think it's FC Roses
I think it's a
and
Stade Boreal
Jesus
thing.
Roses FC and FC Super. Missing them up. But yeah, I think it's a Stade Boreal thing, as you mentioned. But it's a very temporary thing. I hope. I think last year already they did things in the mid season to kind of improve it. So we'll see how that experience change. Let's go ahead and look at the lineup so we can talk about the game. A very very tough game to watch. So at goalie we had Mili. We have Charles Auguste as a right back, Kisan Ferdinand, and Mathis Chrétien, who we had on the show during the week as center back, and Abzi as a left back, and he was also captain this game. Alessandro Biello and Sofiane Emla,
Safwan.
Safwan Emla as midfielders, Clement Bahia, Sean Rea, and Riyad Bey as the attackers, and as a striker we had Conde. All right, so when you look at that lineup, Hari, what were your thoughts?
Yeah. Um, yeah, it
Loic
was
Kwemi.
unfortunate. Yeah, but he's still injured, right? So him and Sissoko weren't available, unfortunately. Uh, Knowing that they weren't available, I kind of get, and even Karajoglu wasn't available if I understand correctly too,
Mhm.
because he was the one that was chosen in the midfield in the last game. Knowing all that, the starting 11 makes sense, right? Because like you don't have another striker. You're not going to put Marcoux. He's still too young to get the start. So I don't know. I felt that the starting 11 made sense. There wasn't anything that I was expecting more than that. Maybe, of course, David Choinière not being here was the
Yeah.
biggest question mark. But you guys said it last time. I think it was Elias that said it in a previous spot. That at one point, maybe it's we could bench him, and he wasn't very certain. And you know what? Nikozagi did it. Nobody expected it, and he did it. And you know what? It wasn't that bad. So yeah.
Elias, what'd you think when you saw that lineup? Any surprises? Were you not surprised? What'd you think?
I also forced myself to remember that this is the first time with like some fixture congestion in their literal history. So it's also important to take that into account. They
Yeah.
are playing a semi-pro team, but it is a semi-pro team from League One Ontario, which is nothing to turn your nose up at. This is going to be very competitive. And then less than a week later, 5 days later, you're playing Forge. So it's three very difficult games. And then again, you have a game on Saturday. So you're playing four games in 2 weeks. And that's again, that is a very significant undertaking when you've just started. You don't necessarily know the squad rotations or how reliable someone could be over four games over 2 weeks. You don't know what people's recoveries are necessarily for such a heavy workload. So I wasn't too surprised to see someone like David Choinière or someone like some other players that are put in the squad instead of others. The loss of Ishmael Yeo hurts even more now
That's gonna
because
be
now
tough,
Kishan
man.
Ferdinand and Mathis Chrétien, who both were banged up pretty bad in this game,
Yeah.
who had a very physical game, now have to do a lot of work and have to stay healthy while doing it. So it's going to be very interesting. I wasn't too surprised by anything besides that. We knew that Loic Kwemi and Abubakar Sissoko were questionable, did not end up playing at all. Again, Nick Rizagi probably saving them for a run of three games that are very important. And so if they give them an extra couple days rest, maybe it's for the best. But besides that, the starting 11 was not too surprising with all that said.
Yeah, well, look, I think I was just as surprised as you guys because yes, I did mention it last week about David Troniak possibly. Why wouldn't they bench him? Because he did nothing much to
Oh,
impress
yeah, you
besides
did.
besides
Sorry.
being a captain. But I was surprised. Even if I said it, I was surprised to not say it because he still is the captain of this team. But you know what, guys? I'm learning very quickly that Nick Razagi, he's very much about he'll do his election, he'll do his team, his squad based on what gives him the best chance to win.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
I see it in practice too. He's very demanding. And you guys were mentioning about Mathis Chrétien and Kishan Ferdinand being banged up. I actually saw in practice Kishan Ferdinand at some point be in the ground down low. And you just felt it in the field. It was like it was a little bit of stress because they had a few days ago they had just lost Ismail Yeo to a season ending injury, and then you see Keyshawn Ferdinand go down, and you're like, oh, this is getting serious. This is starting to really do. So no real surprises in the lineup, but you're still starting to feel that it's a little bit thin, especially in the back line, and you're starting to question, especially Eliza, and I'm sure you saw it on screen as well, Hari, was when Conde at some point got hurt. He landed weirdly on the field, and he was
Yeah.
actually limping. It was, I think, 10 minutes before the half where he was limping a lot, heavily, and you were like, okay, at this point, who do you put in? Because as you mentioned, the other kid, I don't want to botch his last
Marco.
name, Marco. He's young too. He's not he's not he's not gonna go there and make a splash. So then you start seeing that, and you're like, it's getting very thin in these positions, and we're just starting the season. It's been 3 games so far. So it's no surprise in the lineup, but there's still a little bit of worriness, in my opinion, of the depth in the team. Now let's talk about the game. Overall, I want to hear your thoughts about the game. Very controversial game, especially towards the end. I'll start with my take. The whole game to me was very boring, and it wasn't because they were not good. It's just that Cavalry, I think they figured out FC Supra. FC Supra is a team that likes to play with the ball, technically likes to pass it around and all that, and they like to open their game wide, and we saw it at Sepsum a lot. They make a lot of moves that kind of shocks defenders and all that. But Cavalry was there to defend, and they are physical players. We're not talking about refereeing right now. I'm completely out of that. But Cavalry was a very physical team, and they kept stopping FC Supra. Nick Rozagi said it post game. I asked him, "What did you think of the game? What were your overall thoughts?" He said, "We were slow. We were slow. We couldn't get out of our own way." So it goes to show that Cavalry did a good job at stopping, and FC Super, I think, is gonna have to add that part of the game. Nick Rozagi is gonna have to find a way to get around these kind of opponents that are more physical and don't let them necessarily go flow as easily as they thought. Hadi, I'll start with you. What were your thoughts of the game?
They were slow. They were very, very slow, and it showed that you have a veteran team versus a new team, and it showed on the game like directly. You have some players that have been here, that have played CPL for now 5-6 years, and on the other hand, you have a very passionate FC Supra that unfortunately wasn't able to play as fast as Nikaragaki wanted, and at the same time, what happened was a lot of frustration. So there was a lot of frustration from SC Supra, and that's why you got all those yellow cards. I think they got 5 or 6 yellow cards, which was ridiculous. But not even one of those yellow cards was undeserved, because it was deserved all the time, because they were frustrated by the play of Cavalry FC. And at the same time, you look at you said it, Andy. The game was like really boring because Cavalry made it boring. Because they knew that if they didn't make it boring, FC Supra, all the passion was going to carry FC Supra at home. And it's a very passionate team that fuels on passion. And they wanted to completely make sure that the beast is not awakened. So this is exactly what Cavalry and the plan of Tommy Wheeldon Jr. That's unfortunately for us, a great coach. So at the same time, I think that it's a good learning curve for FC Supra. They need to learn to play those games because, they played, teams as of right now that didn't understand what FC Supra was. But expect Forge to do the same. Expect if they qualified in Canadian Championship, expect CF Montreal, Toronto, Whitecaps to do the same thing, right? So they're gonna have to learn, and I think that's a good way to learn. That game is a good way to learn.
Lies?
I think that Cavalry dared Supra to play their style of play. And I think Supra kind of exposed themselves to what is their biggest limitation, which is their lack of offensive depth. Because without Louis Quimi, Ibrahim Konde, and Alexandre Marcoux are not at the level of the Canadian Premier League as a starter yet. I mean, they're by no means bad players. Obviously, I think they have their own space in the squad, but I don't think that they are at the level needed right now to make a defense like Cavalry's worried. We saw that Ibrahim Konde had a couple one-on-one situations. They were handled relatively comfortably. Alexandre Marcoux didn't really get the chance to implement his game. And so when you have someone like Sean Rea, who's, again, I think the Supra got to play their game up until the final third. I think they still built out of the back relatively efficiently. I still think they were able to find both Safwan Mla and Sean Rea in the half spaces where they thrive. The problem now is, like we've said since we saw this final roster for the team, there's no finish. It was the exact same script as what we saw against Atletico Ottawa, where there's all this chance creation. Again, it's important to remember, Supra, despite having less of the ball, had more significant possession and had more scoring opportunities than Cavalry did. But again, if you don't have the finish needed, all the shots are either going over the net or getting blocked, which is what happened. So you didn't even need a god tier performance from a goalkeeper like what we saw against Atletico Ottawa. All the shots just were not on target unless they were right at the keeper. So I think, there's certain parts of the game where the attack was efficient, but when you're talking about being clinical in front of goal and making opportunities count against, again, a team as effective and well constructed as Cavalry, they're just going to say, play through me, and you can't. So that's exactly what happened. I don't think the game was necessarily boring. I think it was a very interesting chess match where, they set up their block, the Cavalry set up their block in a way that they knew they would never get hurt. And they needed some bit of good fortune to kind of end up getting 3 points. And, you guys didn't talk about the refereeing. I will. The refereeing was atrocious. Not just from, I mean, it's not just oops, I didn't call the penalty and it was right. No, because this ref let the game be very physical all game.
Yeah,
he called it, and he called it somewhat both ways. So this ref was letting them play, and I was like, you know what? That's the ref style. Fine. I found the Cavalry penalty to be a little bit soft, based on the precedent that the ref set. Based on the precedent that the ref set, I thought the Cavalry penalty was soft, especially because he didn't call it. So then he called, like, you know what? Fine. Shit happens. He gave the penalty. Okay. Omar El Kekuli, you could say he went down soft. There was contact. Objectively, there was contact. And there's no pool reporter position and the CPL. So that's something that's actually I'm trying to work on getting, because now that we don't really have an actual answer from the ref as to why Cavalry got a penalty and the Supra didn't, because those are copy-paste the same thing. It's the same amount of contact, it's the same situation, almost the exact same spot in the box. So I'm very confused as to how one was allowed and one wasn't. And also the fact that both were overturned. So
yeah, exactly. That's my problem.
It's ridiculous.
That's my problem.
And that now leads me into my problem with the review system, because it's past an hour, Andy. What the fuck is this review system?
Yeah,
it's a mess. Forget the double challenge, whatever the hell that was. There's a reason that VAR, the main thing, its main objective is not to re-referee the game. It's to find clear and obvious errors. If you say there was a clear and obvious error on Mathis Chrétien's tackle that led to the penalty because there was contact, fine. Omar El Kalkouli was hit on his way down. That is objective. There's video evidence of it. You could say it was too soft. You could say it was this, that, or the other. You cannot say that he was not touched. That, in and of itself, means that there's no clear and obvious error. So now what's happening is this video review thing is re-refereeing the game. We don't even know what Alessandro Biello did to earn a straight red. He obviously said something because he didn't even get a second yell. It was a straight red. So he obviously said something maybe over the line, especially given that he's not captain. Ziadine Abzi was. But this ref now is in a position where he is the focal point of the game because of his own doing. So I did not like this review system when they announced it. I still don't like it now that we've had three games with it, four games with it.
Four.
I still think it's dumb. And we'll continue to call it dumb, no matter, because again, it helped the Supra in the first game. It hurt the Supra in this game. So Supra are 1-1 when you look at the review system thing. I still think it's dumb.
But I agree with you 100%, Elias. For me, it's as simple as that. It has to be a clear and obvious errors. And in both instances, he changed his opinion. So what does it say about this referee? Like, if every time you go look at the video, you change your opinion, like at the end of the day, all we want is for you to go check the video on every call you make because you don't make any sense, right?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, this is the downside of VAR. At the same time, it has to be clear by the league that it has to be a clear and obvious error. And this is now in the hands of the league because this is a bit, it doesn't look too good on the CPL right now.
It really does.
It makes them look amateurish.
Yeah.
That's the word I used after the game. It makes them look like an amateur organization.
Yeah.
It's just, anyways, taking the referee out of the game. Let's focus on, and we're gonna wrap it up with this top performer, maybe the flop of the game, and who was the surprise performer. It doesn't have to be a player; it could be the fans, whatever you want. It could be Yaya Toure if you want. Hadi, go ahead.
It's so hard, man, because it was very hard. But I like the game of Diabzi. I'm gonna tell you why. For me, he's the top because I've watched Diabzi when he was at York 9. I watched Diabzi a bit everywhere, and it's someone that usually loses his shit very easily, right?
Sure, see him in the post-game presser.
He was livid.
Yeah, but what I liked about him is that on the pitch he didn't lose his shit, and there was plenty of opportunities to lose his shit. And for me, that's already it shows how much he grew from being that fiery person on the pitch and not really thinking to what he is right now, wearing the captain armband, right? At the same time, during the on the pitch, he was available. He was available all the time in order to build attacks and everything. Unfortunately, it didn't really work because, like we said earlier, the Supra was caught a bit off guard by the experience of Cavalry. But for me, Diabzi was the top. For the flop, it was very, very hard because I could have, for me, there was 7 players that I could put there.
How do you say
it? No, but yeah, I'm good at it. It's Safwan Mla for me, and I know it's funny because when you go to see Fatmub and SofaScore and everything, he has one of the highest scores, and I understand that stats wise he did a lot, but for me we needed a much more defensive players than what he was. He lost the ball quite a few times while building, and for me this is not what we were expecting from someone in the middle. And again, I said it last week. For me, Sissoko was a player that we really needed during that game. It was the exact player that we needed. Unfortunately, we didn't have that. And for me, Mla tried as much as he can, but he's not that type of player. And for me, that's why he's a flop. As for the surprise, honestly, I was. How can I say this? I wasn't surprised by anybody, so I would say the referee just because he sucked.
That's okay. That's fine. That's okay.
He's not wrong. He's not wrong.
The referee made it in a category. Elias, go ahead.
Fucking referee, man.
My top is still. My top is the replay system. Yeah, my top is the replay system being thrown into the river. My top is still going to be Sean Rea. I still think that he was the only driving force offensively in the middle of the park. I think that the only issue with Sean Rea's game is that he cannot do every single thing in attack, drill past everybody, and then score top ins. That's the only problem with Sean Rhea's game. I'm obviously joking, but I think that, right now it's put on display that without Louis Quimi, Sean Rhea is at an innate disadvantage because he's playing with people that are not at his level. It's simple. Um, I've talked about Sean Rhea the last 3 weeks. I have nothing new to say about Sean Rhea because he's playing again. The consistency that we're seeing in his game right now is delightful, and it's something we haven't seen since he was in Winnipeg with Valor. So again, chapeau to him. He's found new life after a really rough go, both in his second stint in the CPL and also with CF Montreal. But it looks like he's refound his form that made him one of the best young players in the league. And it kind of leads into my flop personally is Ibrahim Konde. I was torn between him and Clément Baya because I think they both should have been subbed out at halftime. But at least Clément Baya does do a bit more work on the flank, and he did get past his player once or twice. Ibrahim Konde is not at the level. He's just not. It's unfortunate. He is still relatively young. I think he's in his early 20s. He's a bit older than Marcoux, but he's not, he's not my age, for example. So it's not like this. He has no ceiling. I've seen some good things. He's a good physical presence, but he just doesn't impact the game nearly enough for someone with as much offensive talent around him. Riyad Bey, I think, had a really solid game. Clément Baya was much better than when we saw him against Atletico Ottawa, where I found him to be extremely ineffective. He was much more effective this game and getting into good spaces. And Ibrahim Konde just couldn't really make any space for himself. It's a little bit disappointing. And again, right, they're starting to have this dependency on Louis Quimi to be the decisive force, because without him, you're going to have to ask Sean Rhea to score and create every single thing. So let's hope that this day-to-day is resolved quickly, because without him, this team is going to struggle for sure. My big surprise is not really a surprise, but I think it's a surprise for other people. It's Omar El Kalkouli. I've been touting his talents. A bunch of people have been touting his talents. He stepped in and he did not look like he was a second out of place, both with and without the ball. He kept up with the tempo. He won a penalty that was stolen from him. So that's unfortunate. But again, that was through his innate technical quality. He is he's going to be very important with this team, with this depth, especially if Abubakar Sissoko has the fitness issues, especially if Ousmane Bouganmi has these fitness issues. He's young, he's talented, and I think that, for him, the sky is the limit. And I'm happy that he finally got his first minutes, because again, he also had to deal with some fitness issues. So I'm happy that he finally got his first cameo with the team, and he got some oohs and some ahs, that is for sure, from the crowd, which is, again, when you've got a crowd like this, it's probably the biggest compliment you can get.
Yeah. And look, next up, FC Supra have their first ever Canadian championship against Ontario's League One side Woodbridge Strikers at Sea. Guys, on paper, this looks like a pretty easy game, right?
Nah, it doesn't exist, easy games, man. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist at all.
Let's go there. Like, do you think FC Supra should approach this game very differently? Should they prepare as if it's a championship game, or should they, maybe see if they can go with the B squad in this?
No B squad, man. No B squad. Don't forget, guys, FC Supra players were mostly in PLSQ, League One Quebec. Sorry, last year. Like, they're not so well above, a semi-pro team, right? Like, right now, the margins are very slim between FC Supra and a semi-professional team. Of course, give them a year or two, yes, then you'll have, that gap that will be bigger. But right now, we're not that far, right? They have to make sure that this is going to be very important to make sure to put all the right players in place, because for the visibility of the team, you need to win that game. You need to show, we're a professional team versus semi-pro team, because or else it's not going to look good on paper.
Yeah, Lies, if they lose this game, do you think it's like 7 steps back?
I don't think it's the end of the world, but
No.
it's definitely not a good look. Right?
Yeah.
Whenever a semi-pro team beats a CPL team, it makes national news, and I don't think they want to be in that position. I agree with Hat. I think you could afford to maybe rotate some people, like one or two spots, but they still has to largely be your starters, right? Alessandro Biello for sure has to play because he can't play against Forge due to his red cards. So I have no doubt that he'll be playing. But if you can afford to, you know, give Bakary Caboret a start because I think he did really well off the bench. You give him a start. Maybe you give Riyad Bey a break. If you give Wesley Wanje the start
Chouanier is
instead
going to
of
start
Diadzine
for sure.
Abzi, Chouanier will definitely start. But you give Diadzine Abzi maybe a break because he's been playing a lot of minutes, and you put
Yeah,
in Wesley
one
Wanje.
J.
That makes sense, right? Even if looking at Safwan Mla, who's probably going to be playing a heavy minutes and probably going to have a big role in the game against Forge, especially if Abubakar Sissoko is not ready. Maybe you start Omar El Kakuli next to him, right? It depends because you're going to have a lot of the ball. It really, some things like that, it really depends. But you have to put your heavy hitters. You cannot rotate half the squad because then you're putting yourself in a position to risk an upset, and that's the last thing you need right now.
All right, all right. Well, look, I think it's going to be an extremely important game for the squad to gain their confidence back after to quickly forget the game that they just played. I think they need a bounce back win and a solid one where they can get that confidence back. I don't think the team's destroyed. I think they're just the way it ended was not a good feeling for anyone in the building, and I think now they're going to need that win to at least get back on the horse. All
Yeah,
right, so we'll
that's
take
gonna be that's gonna be very important. But before we move on to CF Montreal, that was gonna be our third team to dissect. A quick shout out to everyone watching live right now. Pretty sure there's a lot of you. If you're enjoying what you're seeing, if you like what we're doing, just make sure to go and follow us. Follow us on all social media platforms. Of course, the ball is around Montreal. But at the same time, also you can follow us individually, Andy, Elias, and myself, on all social media platforms too. So feel free to go do that. And if you want to, you can also become a Patreon. We do have a Patreon. You have the free version, you have the paid version. If you feel that you want to support us, feel free to go and become a paid member. That's going to be very interesting for us. And of course, it's going to let us grow as a podcast and become even better and bigger. This is it. So I think we can go for CF Montreal.
Wait, but we got to give ourselves a round of applause because we had a little milestone ourselves from the Patreon, right, guys? We had
Yeah.
a little, we can give ourselves a little round of applause. We did a lot of hard work and we reached a milestone in how many subscribers do we have. So thank you so much, guys, again. But let's go, as you said, Hadi, let's go ahead and finish off with CF Montreal because, of course, we covered the three teams here in Montreal, CF Montreal, and we'll keep this one quick, guys. We're not gonna talk too much because there's not too much to talk about. So CF Montreal fell 3-1 to Atlanta United at Mercedes-Benz Stadium this weekend in a match that felt like a step backward after recent progress. It was a game full of missed chances and ended on a sour note with Brian Vera seeing red card laid on. Heading into this one, how were you guys feeling about it? Were you excited? Did you want to see a win? How do I start with you?
Yeah, honestly, you can't heal like when you have a lot of injuries, when you're really sick, you can't heal just in one day, right? So for me, I was expecting a very, very hard game in Atlanta. I know that Atlanta wasn't, was behind us in the standings. I know that Atlanta had their woes also, but at the same time, they were on a two wins in a row also, same as CF Montreal, and they were playing at home. And we all know that CF Montreal playing in Atlanta is never, never easy. So no, I wasn't very, confident about what we were able to do. But I disagree with what you said also, Andy, when you said that uh,
Step
there
backwards.
wasn't a lot to talk about, and it is a step back. I don't agree that it's a step back because I saw a lot of positives in that game.
Okay.
We'll talk about the game a bit later, I suppose, but there was a lot of positive in that game, and I don't think it's a step back. I think that it's part of the journey.
I mean, look, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's hard. You can label a step back in so many ways. When I say a step back, it's mostly because it's a loss, right? Like
Yeah,
in
yeah. In that
especially
way,
when
yeah,
you put it in when you put it in the context of the Quebec market of other soccer teams, you want to continue that momentum, especially because
for sure.
they've lost a lot of interest from fans, media. And especially because the Habs are doing so well right now that you want to have a good product and you want to continue winning so you can convince the fans to go see you. That's what I mean by a step back. But as you said, there were a wonderful thing. Elias, how do you feel heading into this game against Atlanta?
I wasn't feeling any really two ways about it. You know, we talked about it last week how this has to be this is a game where points were definitely available, but you also have to remember that games on the road in MLS are never a sure thing, especially with this team. So yeah, based on the way that they played the first two games under Philippe Lafroy, I believed that they were in the right place to compete, but saying anything close to optimism is a big stretch. Even cautious optimism is a bit of a stretch.
Okay. So let's go ahead and look at the lineup for the game. At goalie, we had Thomas Gillier, 4.0. All right. David Bugay, Efrain Morales, Brian Vera. Look at those ratings, guys. Luca Petrasso, Matty Longstaff, Samuel Piet, Oger Escobar in the middle, and Wiki Carmona on the right, Prince Owusu as a 9, and Ivan Jaime as a left winger. Guys, we'll just we won't do the top flop and surprise. We'll just talk about overall the game. How do you spoke about it not being there being a lot of learning lessons in this game? What were maybe some of your takeaways? What did you like? What didn't you like? Give us your thoughts on the game.
I like the structure of the team. I think the team we saw exactly the same team of Philippe Lafroy. And like we saw in the last two games, trying to press high. And that's how the first goal happened, while pressing high, with a great shot from Matthew Longstaff. We saw exactly the same thing. And then trying to defend the lead by being a bit more defensive. I think the block was a bit low, and I'm pretty sure Philippe Lafroy is going to say it. I didn't watch the press conference after, but I'm pretty sure that he said it. But at the same time, the only difference that we see between that game and the first two games of Philippe Lafroy is that on each one of those three goals from Atlanta, there was a major mistake. And that's the problem. Is it the quality of the team? I'm not sure. I think it's just one of those days, and that's why you see on the picture when we saw the starting 11 those very low notes. It's because of low grades, because there were costly mistakes that caused the goal, and that's exactly what happened. So when you look at the play and when you look at the way the game was played, I don't think that Atlanta was above CF Montreal. I haven't seen a much better team than CF Montreal. I think that without those mistakes, this should have been a draw. I saw two very similar teams level wise. At the same time, I saw the Philippe Lafroy way, exactly what he showed us in the first two games. That was exactly the same way that we played. Unfortunately, at the same time, because of those mistakes, you didn't have that momentum that was building in order to score more, and that's the reason why. Unfortunately, those individual mistakes were the end of CF Montreal. Unfortunately.
Elias, what were your overall thoughts of the game?
I think they scored too early, honestly. I kid, but also at the same time, you especially on the road when you go up early, you kind of sit at least a
Yeah,
little bit, right? Now you're in a mad scramble to kind of consolidate your lead before maybe trying to grow back into the game. And for the rest of the half, they basically conceded a lot of the control of the game to Atlanta. So I think they're again, this mentality of going out there and trying to, you scored, good job. Now you have to go out there and double down and really kind of exercise control in a different way than just stifling an opponent. I think that has to kind of be worked back into the mentality of this team, because you look at what would happen under Marco Donadel when things were going even a little bit all right, especially this season. All of a sudden, it's all hands on deck. Oh my God, we have to, preserve whatever little progress we've made. And it's not, okay, we made good progress, let's go make more progress. So I think you kind of have to almost like unlearn that kind of behavior, because I saw it right away and I wasn't too surprised when it happened. And, the second half was significantly better. But again, right, you take an early goal, and from a mentality perspective now, the home team has a 3-1 lead. And reversing that in MLS is not an easy thing. And I think it was also an important reminder for everyone watching, everyone covering this team, that, there's a reason that this team was flirting with last place and losing to really bad teams. And it wasn't just Marco Donadel. There's still quality issues with the players available. I think, they're obviously better than the record that they have, but there's a lot of individual mistakes, and a lot of lapses in concentration, a lot of lapses in focus, and a lot of, moments where even if they are better than what they're showing, they're not giving it. And so after a certain point, this excuse of we're better than our record stops holding any water, because at the end of the day, you keep on showing me that. So how much better are you than your record if constantly, when you're in positions to prove me wrong, you don't? So I think that, I agree with Hadi. I think Philippe Eullaffroy set up this team well. The Victor Latour not being in the starting lineup wasn't really missed that much. I still think that they were able to kind of do what they wanted to do. But again, right, individual mistakes and opportunistic scoring on the other end, and you have a team like Atlanta that's in a really bad way, that has now used Montreal, like almost every other team this season, as a springboard to kind of get out
like
of a rut
Philadelphia.
they're in. Like Philadelphia, like Orlando, like NYCF, not like
Whoa.
but several
Not the Red
teams
Bulls.
so far. No, not the Red Bulls, right? In fact, the Red Bulls were in good form when they played Montreal and they lost. But you have all these teams that have Montreal as an opponent and almost use Montreal as like a springboard. Chicago was one of them to kind of almost use Montreal as like a slum buster. So this happened again, and I think Montreal now, just from a psychological perspective, have to reevaluate that. And based on everything we've learned about Philippe Eullaffroy over the last 3 weeks as a head coach, I think he's very well positioned to kind of tweak the mindset of the players and get everybody on board with that.
Yeah, and don't forget, I just want to add one more thing, Andy, before don't forget that game got played on, for me, one situation. Don't forget that around in the 20th minute, I think 23rd or 24th minute, Wiki Carmona hits the post.
Mm-hmm.
What if that ball went in? It would have been a completely different game. And that's, sometimes it's a game of inches, right? And this is exactly what happened. The momentum was CF Montreal. Everything was going well for them. Mm-hmm. And then you get that post. And then 41st minutes, first big mistake by Thomas Gidier. And for me, if I had to choose a flop during that game, it was Thomas Gidier in that game. Big mistake on the first goal, almost loses the ball around the 49th minute, was really not at all, confident during that game. Really bad game. So you get the first mistake, you bring Atlanta back into the mix. And then right after, you have the two other mistakes. You have the mistake of Petrasso on the third goal. You have the mistake of Vera on the second goal, and from Jaime. So Jaime gives the ball away, and then Vera slips on the second goal. So when you look at all that, you're like, I can't blame Philippe Eullaffroy. He didn't do anything wrong, right? So I don't think, and that's why when I told you, I disagree that it's not a step back, because I didn't see a team that wasn't good. I just saw a team that were punished by three big individual mistakes. And for me, that's okay. This happens. Let's see what they do Wednesday first, which is going to be very important. I hope we're going to see Neil back, because I don't know why he didn't play, on Saturday in Atlanta, but I think it's going to be very important on Wednesday. And let's see how they build on how, if they're able to build on what Philippe Eullaffroy has made, and then we'll see on Saturday also what they're gonna do. Sorry,
I don't know.
Andy,
To
I
me,
was a
it's
bit long
okay.
winded.
No, but just to like finish here, like one of the things that I saw in this game, yeah, and I agree with everything you guys say. But one of the things that I think I'm starting to see from this team is that a lot of these player profiles that succeeded under Marco Donadel, and I'm going to point out specifically Prince Owosu, are having a little bit of a harder time with Philippe Lafroy. What he expects of them, because especially someone, I'll take again an example, Prince Owosu, who is a player that thrives on the man-to-man. He likes chasing his defender, he likes owning up to his defense and all that, where he now has to focus on being in the center the whole time, staying in position and trying to make something out of it. I think there's players that are either benched, or when they're playing they're struggling, and it's starting to see that a lot of these player profiles that are with CF Montreal now were actually brought into the team with Marco Donadel coaching them, which is normal. But it's your as you mentioned, Hadi. I think it's something that with time it's going to take a little bit of time for all of them to learn each other.
Of
Philippe
course.
Lafroy to learn them, and them to learn the Philippe Lafroy. In the meantime, it's going to be pretty ugly sometimes, just like we saw against Alana. But there's that Canadian Championship game that's at midweek, right, against the Alberta Premier League side Calgary Blizzard. Again, similar to what I said at FC Super, right? On paper, this matchup should be pretty easy, right? Because you're talking about an MLS side and an Alberta Premier League side. Elias, you worried?
No, no,
Okay.
I'm not worried. This is a very different conversation from the Supra and Woodbridge Strikers. This game has to not only be a comfortable victory, it has to be an overwhelming victory, because I expect them to rotate the squad.
Yeah,
But
sure.
even your rotated players that you could be giving first time minutes to, someone like Ivan Losenko, someone like Brendan Craig, someone like even Alex Guboglu, they have to throw down the gauntlet and remind people why they are not just professional players, but MLS players. And they have to, you know, again, while showing respect to opposition, they have to beat them comprehensively. It has to be, like 3 or 4 nothing minimum. You have to win by 3 or 4 goals. And so, maybe even Sebastian Breza gets some time, because
Of course.
he's earned it and he's been a very, admirable backup. But yeah, this is a very different conversation from Supra. They have to win. They have to win overwhelmingly, and they have to win comfortably.
Hadi?
Yeah, I completely agree with everything that Elias said. I think that we have to be careful not to change too much too, because you need to have that structure in place. So yeah, we can't change, like you can't have 9 new players in the starting 11. You can have maybe 3, 4, maybe 5, but not more than that. So I think you need that that base that stays here, or that helps the youngsters or the other players to play the game Philippe Lafroy wants to play. But yeah, I'm not worried at all, honestly. The worst case scenario will win by 1 goal, but like that's for me the worst case scenario. I don't see us losing that game at all. I don't see us drawing that game. I
Devil's
No,
advocate. We lose. What
not gonna
happens?
happen.
Burn Saputo Stadium to the ground for the insurance money.
Honestly, I think that I've lived that also with Marseille this year. I
Oh,
think that the
I get that.
fan base is very indifferent of CF Montreal right now,
Hmm.
in a way where they're uninterested.
Mhm.
Uh, they don't have feelings anymore.
None.
I've seen so many supporters that are like, whatever. And before, when we used to lose a game, we were like, they were completely like, oh my god, it's the end of the world. Right now, you don't get these reactions anymore. They're like,
Yeah.
okay, another loss, let's go home. Because it's been too long that the team hasn't won. Like last year was so damaging for this club, like so damaging. 2025 for me was the worst season in the history of this club because fans were indifferent, and we told them it's okay for you to be indifferent. We're going to continue exactly the same way. Yes, there was the letter, and I love the letter, and I understand it's going to take time. But at one point, the coach had to change things, and he didn't.
He did not.
When we saw the win against New York City FC, and we saw that it was the first times since 2024 that the team wins 2 wins in a row. This shows how much this club is at the bottom of any soccer fan here in Montreal. And that's bad. That's super bad. So if we lose on Wednesday, I don't think there will be a reaction. And that's worse than having...
That's not good.
That's worse.
That's not good. Look, I'll tell you this, and we're gonna finish the show with this because Elias is gonna close out. Marco Donadel was the tip of the iceberg for this club.
Yeah.
I'm gonna finish with that. Elias, go ahead, close us out. If Elias is there,
do you not want to elaborate on why he's the tip of the iceberg?
Tip of which iceberg? Is the iceberg still afloat?
What's happening?
Melted.
There's this team is broken from so many angles. I mean, there's the recruiting, there's the scouts. I've gone on rants about the scout, be it on X or being on here. I've said that I don't think that it's a talent problem. It's a club problem where you don't know where it begins or where it ends, because we always end up in the same thing, at least in the past 5 years. Well, no, sorry, since Vasily and Olivier left the club. There's a lot to figure it out. And it's starting to affect. One of the things that actually used to work really well with this team was the communications. They would let the media, they would let the ball is wrong go, right? They would let the ball is wrong have players. But now, even that's become restricted. Now, this is an Andy Coronado thing speaking for the ball is wrong, right? If they want the fans to believe in this project, in this club, in this product in the field, there needs to be, you have to work with your local podcasters, your local bloggers, your local whatever you want to be able to put that content that you want out there. You can continue contacting La Presse or all that, which they're doing a great job. I'm not saying they're doing a bad job, but there needs to be more, how would I say this? Open your doors to those that actually want to cover this club, have covered this club for a long time, and are passionate about what this club does. But again, I'm going to avoid going into a rant and making this podcast into a 3-hour pod, and we'll end it with that. Fair?
I have so much things to say, and it's so hard. But you know what? I know, we need to close out. But maybe next week we'll talk a bit more about that.
We'll talk about it a whole lot more on episode 262. But that does it for episode 261 of the Balls Round podcast. Thank you, everyone who joined us tonight. We hope you enjoyed the show. As always, the Balls Round is free. The podcast will always be free, and it will always be available on any platform that you'd love to consume podcasts. Make sure to follow us everywhere. Don't forget to check out my account, Andy's account, Hattie's account, the Balls Round account. We're everywhere. We are annoyingly persistent, and we are unavoidable, unfortunately, for everybody, including ourselves. Thank you again to everyone who joined the Patreon. Whether you're paid or you're free, we've hit 200 Patreons.
Let's go, baby!
Paid and free, all included. That's an incredible achievement that is only attainable because you guys put up with our nonsense, and you keep coming back for more. And we love every single one of you that takes the time to listen to the podcast, to engage with our content, to just even, drop a comment once in a blue moon to give your 2 cents, because every single one of you is deeply, deeply appreciated. We cannot do this without you, and we will never be able to do this without you. So again, thank you so much for everyone who joined the Patreon this week. Any week, you guys are loved and appreciated, and there's all kinds of goodies there for you, right? So we will keep on delivering on that. We'll be back next week for episode 262 of the press box hat trick. Wow, that's a deep cut. The Ball is Around podcast. Quebecois soccer,
Yeah,
Canadian
one job.
soccer, Montreal soccer, everything in between, all the nonsense. You guys know the drill. Until then, stay safe. May the force be with you,
May the force be with you.
and see you next time.